PSA apparently damaged a customer's Patrick Mahomes Rookie Card. We're going to talk through this in detail because it looks like they may be cherry picking when and where to apply the insurance claim and the declared value of this specific card. There's a few things to talk to in this one, so please just bear with me because you might find that my thoughts on this situation might catch you a little bit off guard. Now, this relates to this card that you're seeing on screen, this Patrick Mahomes 2017 Rookie Auto from 2017 that this customer bought about 6 weeks ago. Now, I should preface this by saying this information is not substantiated, it's not corroborated with anything. It's doing the rounds on social media, but there's a few things I want to talk to that I think a few other people are missing. Now, this customer bought this, like I said, 6 weeks ago for $45,000 in a PSA 10. They thought the auto looked quite good, so they wanted to send it in to get the auto graded as well. The auto came back a PSA 9. Like most people in the hobby these days got a bit funny about that. I think it's a bit silly. Like I don't really care about a 9 auto, to be honest. They wanted to get that 9 off the label now because they thought it would impact on the sale return of that card. They sent it back into PSA. Unfortunately, PSA damaged the card and now think it's going to come back as a PSA 8. They sent the card in as a reholder to remove the autograph grade specifically. Now, what this customer did was pretty silly because they sent the card in with only a declared value of $10,000, which is pretty crazy, in my opinion, that you would take a risk on a card that expensive to save a few bucks. Now, if we go ahead and take a little bit of a deep dive into, PSA's costing for this process, you'll see here that you've got a pretty clear-cut, situation. They've got a section here for cardholder repricing. This customer sent it in under the $50 service because they put a declared value in of $10,000. The correct service would have been the $75 one because they bought the card for $45,000, i.e. it needs to cover the insurance premium. So many people are seeing this and pointing the finger at the customer specifically, as do I 100%, because, irrespective of what a business is going to try and do, you as a customer need to best protect yourself completely, right? And you need to take some personal accountability here. So the fact that you've submitted this just to save $25 is utterly insane to me. And you're doing this on a card worth 45 grand, right? So in what realm do you need the money that freaking badly, right? That's how my mind would go with the situation. So this particular customer only has themselves to blame. And a lot of the conversation has gone towards that piece, which I completely agree with. But at the same time, I think PSA themselves need to try and do the right thing here and look after the customer specifically because when it comes time to grading a card with PSA themselves will often upcharge you if you put the declared value too low, right? Because they'll say, well, you've put this card in at $500, we think it's worth $1,000, we're going to upcharge you X amount of dollars, right? The upcharging with regards to PSA is so notorious and people are really frustrated in this instance because they're seeing PSA on one instance enforce upcharging when the declared value is too low. Now, in this specific instance, they're going to say the declared value is too low, but we don't care because we don't want to pay out as much money, right? They're cherry picking in each of those situations how and when they want to apply their rule. Now, having a look at their terms and conditions, that's perfectly fine, but you can understand why customers are really upset about this situation. Again, this story might just be a bit of a joke, but in reality, this situation is something that could in fact happen when reading their terms and conditions. I think PSA's upcharging is incredibly poor. I think we need to get rid of it. I'll talk to that a little bit later on as well. But if we jump to their terms and conditions, you're going to see things pretty clearly. This is in specific subsection 5, if you guys want to check for yourselves. They don't differentiate between grading, reholdering, or even autograph authentication. They'll say over here, PSA will exercise reasonable care in handling items submitted for grading, review, or reholdering. They then say, however, if PSA determines that customer's item was lost or damaged, certain situations excluded while in PSA's possession, customer will be compensated based upon the fair market value of the item as determined by PSA standard procedures, which may include filing a claim with their insurance carrier. Okay. Now, given that this occurred on site at PSA, I don't think the insurance carrier portion is relevant to this conversation at all. I think that's pretty clear cut in that they should give the fair market value as at the PSA 10 and not focus in on the declared value. Now, those of you that have read ahead might draw a counter argument to the thing that I just said about the fair market value taking, priority over everything, because if you read a little bit further, it goes on to say that the declared value you provided within this submission is for estimating the insurance coverage only. That gives further substance to the fair market value being the amount they're going to compensate on. But the next capital sort of contradicts it, right? Because it then states as sort of like a catch-all, In no event shall the total liability exceed the declared value of the item, which if you read that and take it as, gospel, it essentially means that irrespective of whether or not the declared value is relevant to, the insurance only, right? And the fair market value is their true representation. This point then just squashes that completely and says, well, no, it's your declared value. And if you stuff up and put that too low and it's way below the fair market value, that's on you as a customer. That's how I sort of read that. And that's PSA's catch-all to protect themselves, which is where the issue comes and goes to the point I raised a little bit earlier around them cherry picking when and where they want to apply their declared value situation, right? They want to say in some instances that you've put it too low, so we're going to charge you more. And in others, you've put it too low, but we're not going to pay out like we should, right? I think that's a really poor thing from them as a business, and it's well within their rights to try and do. But, you need to sort of be looking after your customers in instances like this, and I don't think they're going to do that. Now, like I said earlier, the personal accountability has to sit with this customer trying to get back and save $25 freaking on a $45,000 card. You've only got yourself to blame in this situation. And I know some people were getting excited thinking, or at least I was when I first read this, that they're going to apply the fair market value rule. It's pretty clear that if you read these terms and conditions, as you can see on screen right now, and you get to the very end, and then it basically does, you know what? Yeah, the fair market value works, but only when it really suits us. Because I think what PSA is trying to do in this instance is only take the lower of the two. They're always going to pick the lower of the declared value or the fair market value. They want to protect themselves from a insurance perspective, from a payout perspective, from a liability perspective. And the one thing I do want to quickly clarify before I talk a bit further on this is that, this correspondence appears to just be between the customer and an associate out at PSA. There is no formal offer. There doesn't appear to be anything from a senior person out at PSA or anything like that. They've mentioned that they're waiting for a supervisor to get back to them because it looks like there's been some back and forth in terms of phone conversations between this associate, between that customer. So the outcome doesn't appear to be finalized, but I don't think it's going to go any other way than what's already been disclosed to this customer. You put the declared value too low, so now you're almost crap out of luck, right? And it's a really unfortunate thing. And I think, PSA should be doing the right thing by this customer, but at the same time, they're well within their rights to not do it. And whether that's right or wrong, I think is irrelevant. Their T's and C's are pretty black and white. It exposes them to a lot of litigation and potential compensation claims by, giving this customer a payout. Now, the thing to keep front of mind as well, they require you to get an NDA signed before you get your payout. So we're not going to hear what the outcome is of this, but it's just a really poor situation all around that I think PSA really need to take a self-assessment, look at themselves critically and say, okay, well, how can we rightfully do this to our customers and give them, an upcharge when they've put the declared value too low, but then not apply the same logic when they've done it from a compensation perspective, right? We want to pay out to this customer. We need to do the right thing by them and say, okay, we understand you put the incorrect declared value there. We would upcharge you in any other instance. So we're just going to bite the bullet in this instance and give you the money because you've put the wrong amount in there. We're going to charge you $25 extra to go through the correct process, but we're going to, give you the right amount when it comes to a payout perspective, which, I think is the right thing to do. I think they should go out and try and do that. Now, whether or not they do is another question, but this just goes back to the whole, upcharging perspective. I think it's such an archaic process that does not need to be there because they cherry pick like this. And like I said, businesses are well within their rights to do that, but it's just not the right way to approach your customers, right? I really think, and I've said this before, I said this 18 months ago, PSA should seriously consider charging every single customer 50 cents more, a dollar more, rather than upcharge your customers to cover that insurance piece, because upcharging is primarily there to give comfort from an insurance policy perspective, right? To give you coverage when you're shipping the item, and then while it's also in PSA's hands. They want to make sure that if something goes wrong, they can make an insurance claim and then have the money there to pay you out as a customer. Yeah, that makes sense, but I think it's just better to charge everybody a flat fee and then use a declared value to filter out the cards where they need to go, because I think it's fairly obvious that, the more expensive cards are going to go to the more senior graders, because you want the more senior people and the more experienced people looking after this sort of stuff, which is why they probably leverage the upcharge the way they do. But you can get the same outcome by charging everyone 50 cents more, a dollar more, get the same coverage from an insurance policy perspective. Your business is not going to be more exposed now because you're still getting the same amount of money coming in. They're grading 1 million cards a month. Can you imagine if you did 50 cents a card, $1 more per card? That's going to cover you from an insurance perspective very, very easily. And then use the declared value to push the cards where they need to go. And if customers make a mistake, well, I think you should be correcting it because you'd be charging them more, like I said, when it comes to grading. I just think it's a really messy situation. I think in this instance, the customer is equal to blame as PSA. You should not be doing that kind of thing. If you want to save $25, then you've got no one else to blame but yourselves. PSA don't owe you anything. You just like to think that a business will look after their customers. Now, apologies for my voice today. I'm still really, really sick. I just really wanted to get this point out there because so many people have talked to this but have not focused in on the T's and C's specifically. Some people think PSA is obliged by reading the T's and C's and seeing fair market value. But like I said, that capitalized sentence is pretty black and white and basically absolves themselves of all the risk. I was meant to be on a YouTube video with Mike Gio from Sports Card Nonsense tomorrow. I was meant to jump on the Sports Card Therapist as well tomorrow. I'm really sick, guys, so apologies for not being able to join those shows. I've done some makeup sessions with them, so hopefully we can get that going in the next fortnight to 3 weeks. Just bear with me. Apologies if my voice was off and I'm a bit hard to listen to today. I'm just really sick, so I'm going to get some pain meds, take some cold and flu tablets and go back to bed, I think. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.